This video is sponsored by Kinsta. To have your WordPress website hosted with blazing speed, ironclad security, and reliability, simply go to kinsta.com/companyman to get your first month for free, and they will handle the migration for free. The link is in the description. Walgreens might just be the prime example of a classic American retailer. There are few others that have been operating on such a large scale for so long. Walgreens has been doing its thing, serving communities as that corner drugstore for over 120 years now. $147 billion in annual sales makes Walgreens one of the biggest companies in the country, consistently placing them toward the top of the Fortune 500 list. Unfortunately, being large and iconic does not necessarily mean that they are doing well. I have been seeing requests for me to make this video, and at first I was hesitant because I don't want to make it seem like they're on the verge of bankruptcy or anything like that, but at the same time, this is a major company that has been struggling in many ways. Their store count has been steadily decreasing, and in October of 2024, they announced that they would be closing an additional 1,200 stores over the next few years, representing about 14% of them. They have been having trouble turning a profit, and many investors have been losing faith in their ability to turn things around, considering it has been one of the worst performing stocks in the S&P 500. In 2015, Walgreens hit its peak valuation of over $100 billion that has since fallen to less than $10 billion. In early 2025, they announced that they were suspending their quarterly dividend for the first time in over 90 years. There have even been reports about Walgreens potentially being taken private. It is looking less likely that that's going to happen now, but that would be a huge deal, considering Walgreens has been publicly owned since 1927, the same year that they opened their 100th store. My point here is that these are unprecedented times for Walgreens. They're in a bit of a panic mode, and I think it would be interesting to take a look and try to explain how things have gotten to this point. In this video, I'm going to outline what I believe to be 7 of the biggest reasons behind the decline of Walgreens, and it feels so strange to even be saying that sentence. Starting off with one of the simplest reasons, opening too many stores, and a lot of this stems from competition between drugstore chains. Walgreens and CVS, and to a lesser extent Rite Aid, have all felt the pressure to keep up with each other. We cannot deny that the industry has consolidated quite a bit over the past few decades, and Walgreens has been, I would say, the main company responsible for it. Just a few of their notable acquisitions would be in 2010. They paid over $1 billion to buy a New York-based chain of drugstores called Duane Reade. Only a few years later, they bought the owner of Britain's largest pharmacy chain, Alliance Boots, in 2 separate deals that totaled to more than $20 billion, creating a new combined company called Walgreens Boots Alliance. The following year, they even tried to buy one of their biggest competitors, Rite Aid, in a deal that ultimately failed due to antitrust concerns, but later on, they did end up acquiring almost half of their locations. Today, Walgreens claims that 78% of the US population lives within 5 miles of one of their stores. But it became a situation where Walgreens owned so many stores from different sources, and things became a bit jumbled. Many of them are in poor locations or too close to other Walgreens stores, and then there's a concern about the potentially shrinking demand for drugstores in general that I will talk about more in a minute. The head of the company, Tim Wentworth, has said that a quarter of these stores have not been profitable, and logically, many of those are the ones that will be closing. Simply put, in their mission to grow and keep up with the others, Walgreens has slowly become less efficient, and now they're working to address that. Next up on my list is their pharmacy operations. As you may have guessed, Walgreens is heavily reliant on their pharmacies. It is how they started, it is what they are most known for, and even the logo has that mortar and pestle. We can look at this in terms of sales, essentially how many prescriptions they are filling, or in terms of profits, how much money they are making from each of those prescriptions, and from both angles, it has been concerning. More and more people have been using online services to fill their prescriptions, like Amazon Pharmacy, and as far as profits, the popularity of generic drugs have cut into things, as well as pharmacy benefit managers. For everyone's benefit, I'm not going to even try to go too deep into this one because it is a complicated system, but PBMs are like the middleman connecting and negotiating with pharmacies and the companies that make the drugs. The leading 3 PBMs in the US currently control 80% of all prescriptions that are being filled, so there have been all these concerns about them having too much power, hiking drug prices, and unfairly profiting from all of it. Again, it is is a tricky system, but Walgreens, along with many of the other pharmacies, have been struggling with it. Tim Wentworth has gone so far as to say, "We are at a point where the current pharmacy model is not sustainable, and the challenges in our operating environment require we approach the market differently." Now, the rest of their business mostly consists of the retail end of things, the snacks and the soaps and whatever else you see when you walk into a Walgreens, and that is going to be the next reason on my list, because not surprisingly, this has been threatened as well for multiple reasons. I think most of us would agree that Walgreens essentially functions like a convenience store. I do not think that many of us go there for our weekly grocery shopping, but rather when you need to grab something quick and they are nearby, or when you are already in the store filling a prescription. Well, fewer prescriptions being filled means fewer people in the stores already, so you can see how those numbers relate to each other, but also consider that when interest rates and inflation are forcing people to be more careful about how they spend their money, they are more likely to favor low prices over convenience. Discount stores like Walmart or Target tend to have lower prices, so over the past few years, people have been gravitating toward them instead. Not to mention the effect that Amazon and other online retailers have had on this part of their business as well. And considering that Walgreens has always relied on convenient physical sales in the moment, I would not necessarily expect them to be able to win over customers too easily when it comes to online sales. So, considering the two main parts of their business have a questionable future, over time it seems like Walgreens will likely be forced to either downsize significantly, which we have already been seeing to an extent, or find new sources of revenue, widen their scope into something else. Walgreens' biggest attempt to do this has not gone very well, and is in fact going to be the next reason on my list. Actually, CVS has already been widening their scope much more successfully for many years now. Most notably, in 2006, they bought Caremark for $21 billion in stock, which is one of those big three PBMs. And in 2018, they paid significantly more money to buy an insurance company called Aetna. CVS has spent decades becoming comparatively less reliant on pharmacy and retail operations. Bringing it back to Walgreens, in 2020, they spent $1 billion to buy a small portion of a primary care company called Village MD. The following year, they spent an additional $5.2 billion to buy majority control of it. And then in 2023, that company bought a similar company called Summit Health for almost $9 billion. So clearly, Walgreens has been attempting to break into healthcare without much success.
We are more of a healthcare company today than people actually appreciate.
The scale of the investment has been too small to make a major impact, with the entire segment accounting for something like 6% of all sales, and that segment has been losing money. In 2024, there was a $6 billion goodwill impairment related to it, essentially the company recognizing that it was no longer worth the amount that they paid for it. And on top of that, they have since shifted their strategy back toward the pharmacies, selling the healthcare business and refocusing to try to make the existing operations more efficient. Going back to the list, I'm going to start moving a little faster here. I believe Walgreens has also declined due to leadership changes. Now, I will admit this one is a little more abstract with some speculation on my end, but I feel like it is at least worth mentioning here. See, Walgreens was started in 1901 by Charles Walgreen. He was a pharmacist in Chicago who paid $6,000 to buy the pharmacy where he was working. Over the next few decades, he built it into a significant chain. I think it was interesting that the company claims to have invented the malted milkshake under his control. Well, he continued to run things for the next 38 years, until only a few months before his death, when his son, also named Charles Walgreen, took over. He would then go on to run things for the next 32 years, before his son, also named Charles Walgreen, took it over for the next 27 years. That right there is a combined 97 years, almost the entirety of the 1900s, under the control of 3 different people within the Walgreen family. However, since then, there have been 7 different CEOs, none of them members of the founding family, and none of them in the position for more than 5 years at a time. The very fact that leadership has changed so much can be counterproductive. One person setting a strategy and then the next person coming in to reverse that strategy, sort of like what happened with their healthcare attempt. But also, just not having that personal connection of having worked there your entire life and following up on your family's legacy could lead to less passion and potentially more more risky decisions that I think we have seen. Again, this reason is mostly speculation, so tell me what you think about it. Next up on the list is something much more concrete: lawsuits. Walgreens has been involved in more lawsuits lately than ever before. For example, in 2024, they paid over $100 million involving violations of the False Claims Act. The government alleged that for 11 years, Walgreens billed healthcare programs like Medicare and Medicaid for prescriptions that were never dispensed. That same year, they paid another $100 million to settle a class action lawsuit where they were accused of overcharging customers when they bought generic drugs. But the most costly and the most publicized lawsuits have been related to the opioid crisis. Along with other major pharmacies, they have been accused of contributing to the epidemic by becoming too willing to fill prescriptions for them. Trust me, this is a whole separate subject that could be debated, but Walgreens has been paying out a lot of money related to it and receiving some negative publicity. My final reason behind the decline of Walgreens is potentially the least significant one on the list, but still an interesting one: theft. Walgreens has been having a problem with people stealing stuff from their stores, which clearly hurts profits. The company is paying for an item and then getting nothing in return for it. And I suspect at least part of this is due to some of those stores being located in areas with higher crime rates. I mean, for so many of the Walgreens that exist today, they did not even choose where to put it. They were just acquired and converted from the company that did choose where to put it. So then, to address it, they hired security guards and locked up a lot of their merchandise behind glass, which they later admitted they may have gone a little overboard with it. Tim Wentworth even said, when you lock things up, for example, you don't sell as many of them. We've kind of proven that pretty conclusively. Remember that many of their customers are there because it is convenient, and when you have to go and get somebody to unlock that glass case, well, it becomes less convenient. And a lot of people really got annoyed over this, so theft has been an issue, but then the way they tried to handle it may have been an even bigger issue. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about Walgreens? Do you prefer it over the direct competitors like CVS and Rite Aid, or maybe you think drugstores in general are losing their purpose? Many people have already replaced them with online options or big box stores, so what do you see for the future? What does Walgreens have to do to bounce back? I also want to mention that Rite Aid filed for bankruptcy in 2023. I made a video about them shortly after it happened that I recommend watching if you want to see a lot of these same issues being dealt with by a smaller store with a shakier foundation. As always, I want to remind you that this is not a complete list behind the reasons of the decline of Walgreens, but instead the ones that I found to be the most impactful or just the most interesting. Tell me if you think something should be added or subtracted from it, and any other thoughts you have about Walgreens or anything else in this video, leave them in the comments. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Thank you for watching.